Alrighty, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Fantasy Dome. I know some of my viewers may have a question. Where the hell have I been? This summer has been absolutely crazy. I haven't had time to do pretty much anything, let alone make videos. Haven't had any time to do that. But, we're back. I should be back with some fantasy football content. A lot of stuff that's in season, but, while we're still in this preseason phase, I guess the preseason games are kind of over, but we're still here, and I would like to talk about the four players that these fantasy football experts love, but I absolutely hate. I will not be drafting any of these guys in my drafts. Maybe one of them if they fall far to me, but I'm gonna go from the least spicy to the most spicy, and so the um, yeah, once again, I apologize for being gone for so long. It's just been very hectic for me. And I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I hope you guys leave a like and subscribe. Uh, Once again, we are 10 days away from the NFL as I'm recording this. It should be coming out on midnight, so it's going to be 9 days. But yeah, let's get started. But the first thing I want to say before I get started, actually, is that I don't make any money from these videos. I do these for fun, and this isn't me attacking these guys. These guys are experts. They know exactly what they're talking about. But you know what? Everyone gets some hits, everyone gets some misses. So you know what? I think that these are misses for these different guys this year. And so we're going to start from the bottom, and we're going to go up. So we're going to first start with the Fantasy Pros, Joe Pisapia, and all of his company. But their first player is Keon Coleman. And now, after this, I'm going to play a little clip, tell you what they say, and
on Keon Coleman because it was a big disappointment last year. Everybody loves the kid. He's a good guy. We're rooting for him. They brought in Josh Palmer. Why is Keon Coleman a sleeper that people need to be drafting this season?
Well, I want you guys to tell me if this is the homer take because I've been known to never go homer takes when it comes to the Bills. If anything, I've gone the opposite way. But now that Josh Allen's there, it's a little easier to buy into this offense in the last few years. And I think last year when they drafted Cole.
so now that Josh Allen is here, Josh Allen was here last year. Keon Coleman was a rookie last year, and I didn't see any progression from him. From I'm gonna tell you my issues with him first. I didn't see any progression from Keon Coleman's beginning of the year to the end of the year. If anything, I think he may have even got worse. I know he had some issue at the beginning of the year as well. Like, I don't know, something with like not showing up to practice. I don't remember exactly what that was, but I remember, or maybe showing up late. But he had an issue. And Keon Coleman just didn't get better. He cannot get any separation. Does not look good in camp this year. And I just think there are guys that I think Josh Palmer can go and do his job just as well. Keon Coleman's an outside guy. I think Josh Palmer can come and do his outside work better. You also have guys like, obviously, Khalil Shakir, one of the best guys. You even had that sleeper wide receiver that they got. I forget his name. But in the draft, that looked pretty good during camp. What was his name? I don't remember his name. But you have a ton of these guys that I don't really like as much when you see Keon Coleman standing. And based on where you have to draft him, wide receiver 51, I'd have to take some shots on other guys. I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
Coleman. They did draft him in hopes that he could eventually become that number one target for Josh Allen. Now, when rookies show up, one of the first things I'm trying to figure out is like, do they belong? Do they look like? And it kind of just derailed his season. But now this offseason, everything we're hearing is that he's an improved player, that he looks great, that the connection is there with Josh Allen.
I don't think that's what exactly we're hearing. I don't know. It's not been a standout article for Keon Coleman. I just overall think that Keon Coleman is overpriced. He's a decent dynasty stash. He might be able to sell him for a second round pick next year if he has a decent game or something like that. But Keon Coleman's a guy who I just don't see any value in drafting in a redraft. I think that Shakir is the clear number one on that team, and Josh Allen loves to spread the ball around. You've got Shakir, you've got Palmer, you've got Coleman, you've got Knox, you've got Kincaid. You've got so many of these guys. You even got James Cook as well that need to get the ball. And there's one focal point, and one focal point only in that Bills offense. And I think it showed it this year because Josh Allen had one of his best years in the league. He called an MVP season, yeah, because he just lost his number one weapon and got so much better, and the offense did so much better without that Diggs. And I think the number one guy in this offense is Josh Allen. So why do I have to have anyone else? So I don't like Keon Coleman. I really don't like any of the Bills receivers besides Shakir. Shakir can give you a solid 11, 12 points a game, and I'll do that. But I think Keon Coleman's just going to be a boomer bust kind of prospect every year. So the next guy we're going to be talking about is one of the guys that is Sal Vetri and his video, the 10 best picks in your fantasy football drafts. I'm going to say this right now. I'm going to leave all these guys' info in the descriptions below. Go watch them. If you haven't heard, if you're watching me, there's more than a lot of a chance that you've heard of these guys. So once again, go watch these guys. They got great content, and yeah. But we're gonna move on to Sal Vetri, and I absolutely hate CeeDee Lamb this year. I'm just kidding. What I actually hate is I hate George Pickens, and George Pickens is more of like almost a narrative type thing. I'm someone who believes in narratives and believes in organizations. And the one thing that the Steelers organization is notoriously good at is trading away receivers who seem to be good, like Juju Smith-Schuster, a good player. Chase Claypool, they traded him for a second-round pick. A second-round pick. And where's Chase Claypool now? He's mopping at McDonald's. And you're going to tell me that George Pickens is going to slot in and he's going to be that number one, not number one, but like he's going to be a lot better than he was last year. I mean, you could have anomalies, but I just think that the Steelers are that good at discerning when players become a problem. Because as soon as they leave the Steelers, oh, what do you know? There's such a problem. But let's take a little look at this video.
To see 170 plus targets, honestly, this year and every year, right? When he's healthy and Dak's healthy. But outside of that, no competition for Pickens. And if we're talking about it, CeeDee Lamb does a lot of his work in the middle parts of the field, out of the slot, short to intermediate parts, where George Pickens can work primarily as the outside wide receiver downfield and maybe threaten for double-digit touchdowns, threaten to rank top 5 to top 10 in explosive plays like he did last year on a bad Steelers offense, because his only competition after this is Jalen Tolbert. Okay, there's not much here out of a third-round rookie who they once thought they would get a lot out of. Kevontae Turpin, who they re-signed, mostly a special teams and speed player. They traded for Jonathan Mingo, a former fourth-round pick, or they traded a fourth-round pick for him from the Carolina Panthers. He's done nothing. This offense right now, in terms of the passing attack, is obviously CeeDee Lamb 1, but George Pickens as a clear number 2 and a top 5 potential.
He's correct in saying that George Pickens is going to be a number 2 receiver. I mean, it's quite obvious, but just disregarding Turpin, Tolbert, Mingo, and even Jalen Brooks, like just disregarding those guys and a guy like Jake Ferguson is not the correct assumption, I don't think, because I think that CeeDee Lamb can do just everything that George Pickens can do, but better. And I get that they operate out of different areas of the field, but I just don't think that we've been saying this with George Pickens. Like when he had his first year, he had Kenny Pickett. Not great, but once again, he was fine. He had Russell Wilson the next year, didn't do anything. But you expect a guy who was the clear number 1 in his offense. George Pickens had no competition when he was in Pittsburgh. Who was the best wide receiver that George Pickens played with? Because he came after Juju and Chase Claypool left. So it was the best wide receiver he played against. I can't even tell you who the best wide receiver who played with was. And now you think he's going to produce playing with CeeDee Lamb? I just don't know. I'm so not in on George Pickens, especially when you can draft guys like you can draft Devonta Smith at the same spot. In ESPN, you can draft Ted McMillan and Travis Hunter at the same spot where you can get George Pickens, and I'm passing on him every single time, right? Pickens is a guy who statistically hasn't been good in his career so far. He's made the flashy plays. That's the only reason he's still relevant, is that he makes those flashy plays. If he didn't make the flashy plays, he would be almost like people would think of him as like that Shakir kind of guy. Oh, he'll be an 11, 12 point per game guy, but nothing else. We're going to move him down our boards. And I think he should be a couple rounds lower than he is right now. And I think that George Pickens may be one of the worst picks that you can make in drafts. And I'll hold my hand out on it, and I'll say it. So, the next YouTuber we're going to be looking at is Mason Dodd. He is personally my favorite expert on this topic. I think his videos are super well thought out. He uses statistics and ranges of outcomes, really uses the math to try and determine how good these players are and how good they will be in the next year. But I really like what he does. I like his website, flockfantasy.com. I think everyone should join it. Their trade calculator is super good for simpler trades. It kind of gets glitched out when you do a lot. But I think that their website has really good rankings. Has a really good. It accounts really well because with other trade calculators that keep trade cut, yes, the consensus rankings and their rankings by the people. However, their trades, I can throw in Dynasty at least, I can throw in 23rd round picks and get Josh Allen. Am I really going to take 23rd round picks instead of Josh Allen? Absolutely not. Not even close to be doing that. So we're not going to be, we're just, the trade calculator on this site is actually really good. But the one thing that I disagree with him about is Josh Jacobs. So Josh Jacobs is being drafted in the middle of the second round to the early third round. And he's been falling a little bit in drafts. And I really, really do agree with this. I think his game, he was touchdown dependent last year. As you can see, this is what I like about his videos rather than others, is that he has all the stats up. So I can kind of tell you guys as it comes along. So, right, last year, 17 points per game, 0.9 touchdowns a game. Now, this is important. He's almost scoring a touchdown every game. This is his best mark since his 2020 season. And it is even worse than his RB1 season, or I guess RB3, but rushing leader season at 0.7. But I just don't think that this is sustainable. If his touchdowns go down, then once again, he is like a 16, a 15 points per game kind of guy. And if you looked at his actual game by game statistics, he really he moved it up in the second half of the year. I remember I traded DK Metcalf straight up for Josh Jacobs in another league, and DK Metcalf was terrible. But at the time, Josh Jacobs was like a 13 point per game guy. DK Metcalf was also a 13 point per game guy. But I needed a running back. He needed a wide receiver. It was kind of like, okay, these guys kind of fit together. But then as the year came on, Josh Jacobs turned into an absolute monster, and DK Metcalf kind of went down the drain. But the reason why Josh Jacobs went so off is just because of his sheer volume of plays he got. Towards the end of the year, he got over 20 carries a game easily every single game. And that's just because the Packers weren't throwing the ball. They weren't healthy. None of their receivers were that good. But everything is changing now because Jordan Love is hopefully, I know he's not healthy right now, but hopefully he comes into the season pretty decently healthy. And Matthew Golden looks like an absolute stud. So let's watch his take on it.
Or super high ceiling. There's not much to discuss. I mean, y'all know I won $150K on Underdog back in the day because we flag planted and made Josh Jacobs our most drafted player. But looking at Jacobs coming off of his second best NFL season ever with 17 fantasy points per game. I mean, Josh Jacobs has played at least 15 games in 4 NFL seasons so far. In the fewest amount of games that he's ever played has been 13. You look at his higher lower, you're at 10.5 rushing touchdowns. You're at about 1,100 rushing yards. So you have a lot of security with Josh Jacobs, a very high ceiling. There's not much to discuss. Everybody's kind of on it. I think you can draft him in round 2 and be very happy. But I think that's all I got for you.
So he says he's a high ceiling player. I completely disagree in the form that he is not replicating what he did 2 years ago with 19 fantasy points per game. And even if he does that, that's 1,500. That is Josh Jacobs' ceiling. Josh Jacobs' ceiling is 19 points per game. And yes, that's high, but that's not a high ceiling. That's a relatively low ceiling for a player to have is 19 points per game, especially when you're drafting in the first 2 rounds. When you could draft guys like Ladd McConkey, you could draft guys like Tyreek, T. Higgins, whose ceilings are probably already way higher. Chase Brown, his ceiling is way higher than Josh Jacobs. He averaged 20 points per game for the entire second half of the season. And I would rather take Chase Brown any day than Josh Jacobs. He's on a better offense. He has more receiving upside. And it's just a lot better. And like once again, I said I love Mason Dodd. I do not think that this was a good pick here. To my most controversial, the fourth player I have on my list. I'm on Flock Fantasy's website right now because I want to use the player comparison tool. I want to use it so I can show you in depth because everybody absolutely loves this guy. But I'm sitting here and I'm thinking he's a red herring and he is a white owl. He is a guy who everyone absolutely loves, but I just don't think he's going to head up to the ceiling as everyone else does. And that is Drake London. Everybody and their mother loves Drake London. Everyone predicted him to have a breakout this season. They drafted him super high. They were drafting him in the second round last year. When you look at him, and if I went to the 2023 season, he averaged 10 points per game. And he was the wide receiver 43. So this is the guy that people started drafting in the second, third round of drafts last year. And he hit last year. It was great. He averaged 16 points per game after that. That is perfect, right? That's exactly what you want to see. However, what people are saying is that Drake London was a lot better at the end of the year than he was in the beginning. And if you look at the games where Michael Penix started the last 3 games, right? Look at this. He averaged 23.1 points per game, right? Wow, that's unbelievably good. However, I'm just going to quickly throw up Juwan Jennings, right? Now, Juwan Jennings averaged 11.7 points per game. That's full 24. He overall averaged 14 points per game. But let's throw weeks 1 to 3 in here, right? He averaged 21.2 points per game. He's doing unbelievably good, right? Not really. Because that 21.2 points per game came from his monster 45-point week. And once again, you see here, Drake London, 13.2 points per game. But once again, you say Kirk Cousins was bad, right? Kirk Cousins wasn't great. But to say that he averaged 23.1 points per game over the games that Michael Penix started, that's really misleading because if you just do 16 and 17, he averaged 14.3 points per game, which is fine. But like in my redraft league, he went at pick 11. Pick 11 in the league over Amon-Ra St. Brown, over Nico Collins, over Derrick Henry, Devon Achane. He's going super high, right? So let's see what Dynasty Domain has to say about him.
Round. And ironically, in the Flock League, Amon-Ra fell to the second round, which we shouldn't have. But again, that's why we like Drake London so much, is he's so similar in terms of his skill set and what he offers for that offense schematically that the reason he's going at a cheaper price is just because he's not on the Detroit Lions. And I mean, you're looking at last season, 157 targets. When you're looking at his target share, target rate, total targets, he was top 6 across the board.
So tell me this. Do you really think how many of these numbers realistically get better? I think the targets are bound to regress. 157 targets is not sustainable unless you're the elite players, and I just don't think that Drake London is that right now. Target share 29.1, I think he can keep that, but I also think that that's another candidate for regression. Same thing with target rate. Routes run, probably a little bit more. Yards per route run, 2.45. I think that could also go down. And same thing with the slot. I mean, the slot snaps don't really matter as much, but I think that with Drake London, he had his breakout season already, right? He went from 10 points per game to 16 points per game. Great. That's a great breakout season, right? But this is year 3 we're talking about. And you can say that he had bad quarterback play. But once again, he was the only guy in that offense. And once you can also call it Arthur Smith ball, whatever. But he still got Bijan Robinson. I think that even though Darnell Mooney's hurt right now, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod is a decent wide receiver duo. You still have Kyle Pitts. I'm not drafting Kyle Pitts this year either, just saying. But you've got weapons around him. And I think that this offense is still going to be a run-first offense with Bijan Robinson, who's arguably one of the best running backs in the league. And I just think you look at Drake London's underlying stats and his efficiency, and I think a lot of these numbers go down. And it's not like he's going to be a bad pick, right? He's not going to go down to dropping 14, or sorry, I guess he's not going to go down to dropping like 10 or 9 points a game. He's going to average a solid 13 or 14 points per game, and he'll have a couple weeks where he hits 30. But to say that over the last 3 weeks of the season, Drake London averaged 23 points per game. Come on. To say that he averaged 23 points per game and was the wide receiver 2 over weeks 16 to 18, he had a great playoff run. Actually, he didn't have a great playoff run. He had an okay playoff run. He had a good week 18. And if you're playing in your fantasy football championship in meaningless week 18, there's something wrong with your leagues. But once again, I don't think Drake London is the guy. I'm also a bit lower on Michael Penix. I think that really he's not that good of a quarterback. And once again, history tells us that one of these guys, at least from this class, has to bust. Caleb Williams doesn't look good. I think Jane Daniels and Bo Nix are locked, and I think even if Bo Nix regresses, he could be just a generational backup. Kind of like, I think that's his floor. I think Jane Daniels' floor is a good starter. Bo Nix's floor is a great backup. Drake May's floor is also kind of a great backup. J.J. McCarthy's floor is bust. We haven't seen anything from him yet. I think Caleb Williams' lowest floor is also bust. And then Michael Penix, I hate to say it, I think it's also bust. I mean, he was okay with what he showed. It was nothing spectacular, though. And calling Drake London the best pick in fantasy football drafts is something I don't like. And it's somewhere where I can't get along to taking him as early as you take him. When he falls to me at the end of the second round, I'll take a shot on him. Because I know that he's going to average a cool, calm, and collected 14, 15 points per game. But he is not going to be this 23 point per game savior that people are talking about. And I can guarantee you that. So, once again, those are my 4 picks. Keon, Coleman from FantasyPros, and Joe Pisapia. You've got Sal Vetri with George Pickens. Mason Dodd and Flock Fantasy with Josh Jacobs. And then Dynasty Domain Fantasy Football. I usually watch the Dynasty stuff. But Domain Fantasy Football with Drake London. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And I hope you guys agree with my takes. But once again, if you don't, just let me know. And leave a like on this video if you want to see the opposite. The players that these YouTubers hate, but I love. So, once again, leave a like, leave a comment, leave whatever you want. Call me an idiot in the comments, please. I'll see you guys in the next video.